We're live. Okay. So thanks everyone for coming to today's website redesign team meeting or initiative meeting. So quick rundown of who's here. Uh, I'm Tierney Siren. I'm developer advocate at NodeSource, and I'm co-chair of the community committee. Adam, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yep, I'm Adam Miller, developer over at LinkedIn and member of the community committee.
Awesome. Darcy?
I'm Darcy Clark. I am a Node enthusiast, developer designer, and primarily consulting and freelance.
Awesome. And Manil?
Hi, I'm Manil. I'm a developer and also a Node enthusiast based out of Western Cat.
Cool. Awesome. So we have a few items on today's. Before I get started, would someone be willing to take minutes? I see someone's kind of already filling it out. Would anyone be willing to take that on?
I can totally do that.
Can help.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Perfect.
I can also.
2 people is great. So for today's meeting, we have 3 items on the agenda. First is website wireframes. I don't know if there have been any updates on that. It looks like there has since our last meeting.
I can give a quick update just from memory. There's been a little more activity on the ticket. We have numbers from Google data. As for actual further work done, I am unfortunately these past 2 weeks been in the middle of a product launch and a conference right now. So there's been, I did a little bit of work to consolidate feedback into an actionable list for it. But beyond that, I personally have not gotten very far. I'm realizing now I also did not share the sketch file as was discussed last time on the GitHub issues. We'll add that to my to-do list properly this time. That's my understanding of the updates from last time. If anybody has anything else to add, go for it.
I'm just looking through the issue right now, and there's just more discussion about download buttons.
Yeah, I think we found the hot button issue. pun very much intended.
Yeah.
For the site. There was it was left kind of open.
Yeah.
As last discussed, I think we need some guidance from release committee.
Yes.
To get a proper response.
So I didn't follow through with the thing I was supposed to on that, and I apologize. I've been sick and busy over the past 2 weeks. So yeah, we do need to get the release team in here. I'll actually take an agenda item right now. I'll try to ping the TSC in there and see if they are interested in if anyone would be willing to come and help represent that. I believe, no, I guess I didn't. I thought I had done that while we were talking about it last time, but that doesn't seem to be the case. So
and
I
just
will.
Some reclarification of the question. I think there's two things we need answered. One is, do we want to support or endorse package managers as the primary download option? Was one question. And the answer to that will guide the continued discussion of do we? I mean, we need them to weigh in on does the homepage button immediately start a download, or are we routing to a specific downloads page?
Yeah.
And what's the encouraged path there?
I'm trying to find the package manager discussion because I didn't realize that was there. But
it was suggested, and people seemed very open to it, and we didn't get I at least did not get a good read as to how endorsed that was and how much we actually wanted to push it.
So my understanding is that there's not actually an officially endorsed package manager. I mean, I know NVM, as much as we'd love to bring it in, has not had there's been barriers to bring it into the foundation. That's probably how that would get endorsed at that node version manager level. And then
we're talking more on the
okay, so
the brew or yum or apt-get or
gotcha. Yeah,
type
so
of package manager.
I can probably give a little bit of insight into that others don't have. Um, there is almost, as far as I know, no, except for Brew, there's none of those package managers actually maintain Node.js themselves. So when you apt-get install Node.js, by default, without doing anything, you get Node.js 4.3, which is an pre-LTS Node 4 version.
Not
It
ideal.
has a suite of security vulnerabilities. So, and like that's, I can give a little bit of extra insight into that is because we maintain the up-to-date ones at Node Source. And so, yeah, there's nobody is really taking that on in the official canonical sense. And pun intended there. But also for Yum as well, I believe the same story, and also for RPM, the Red Hat Enterprise Linux, they're not updating as well. So my best, I would place money on us probably not endorsing that, just because it's unmaintained and it's not something that the foundation or the project has taken on as something that we are willing to maintain.
Yeah, bringing we got traffic numbers for the package manager page, and maybe bringing
Gotcha. I see
the popularity of it to the attention of the release team.
Yeah,
might kickstart that discussion.
Yeah, that's
it couldn't hurt. A lot of other languages manage their own package distros, and yeah, couldn't hurt to maybe bring up the conversation again.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I didn't realize that was part of that. So that does make a lot of sense, because on the other end of that, that package manager page points to a node source page that we discuss it, and our repo where all that stuff lives. And I consistently see extremely high traffic from that. So it's a non-trivial thing, and very high usage. So
yeah, awesome.
So I will ping the releases team and the TSC to kind of get context on if we want to support that.
Sweet. Thank you.
Yeah. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to add to that discussion?
Yep.
Okay. So I think, hold on here. Let me finish this. My outline. Okay. So I think we can go to the next agenda item, which is getting started with Node. So Druv, I don't know how to pronounce the name properly, so I hope I'm not butchering that. But they proposed a few different sections that could be in a getting started with Node section on the site. This seems like it would fit partially within the community section, but also it should probably be in the learn section, just looking at the content that's in here. Does anyone have an update on this explicit update? I know, Darcy, you were interested in this, and I believe there was also discussion around other things as well in that same space.
Yeah, I think this also dealt with the REPL. So discovery. So I was just putting some notes on sort of the other section to circle back on this, but we can talk about it now. I wasn't able to add. Essentially, I've done a bunch of work to explore different REPLs. There's like REPL-it, RunKit, all those sort of embedded runtimes, which is, I think, going to be really useful and I would think a really good opportunity to help new developers or even existing developers, interact with APIs and docs more fluidly. So I'm going to add essentially, that research that I've done. I was just putting down though. I want to get everybody's feedback in terms of what requirements we really do have. I know that Jen Schiffer came along in that discussion and said that, glitch would be a great option. And I'm just wondering, what is the criteria that maybe we are looking for from, let's say, embedded runtime?
So I think, the criteria that, this is just totally me and kind of what I think I value is being able to use Node in the browser and like interact with, building an HTTP server or something, or, actually using external things that aren't just Node. Because at this point, my experience with Node has been nobody ever, or almost nobody uses just Node. It's always Node and X. And so enabling the users, the people who are going to try to come and learn about Node, to go from, a basic, okay, here's the file system thing, the file system module, to, okay, here's Express. And you can do something with that. Hold on, I got to sneeze. Oh, excuse me.
Bless you.
So doing something with that in the browser is super important, and not having to go and download Node, go npm install, go do XYZ, just being able to start playing with that immediately.
So in that space, I guess my one the biggest query I sort of had was whether or not some of these environments allow you to build even more robust applications where you can include pretty much any dependency, and they go sort of tangentially into that application space versus sort of singleton, like one-off use cases that are more well-defined. And looking into the docs, I don't see any area right now where that larger application space is necessarily helpful, and it might actually be confusing for a new developer to know that there's some package JSON living somewhere right now. We don't even talk about that yet in the docs. So I'm wondering if like the part of the requirements or the scope of what would come out of adding a REPL into docs or having working examples in docs is that it should be like a streamlined experience where it's only highlighting a single piece of functionality.
So I think that, and please, anyone, feel free to interject. I think the intent here is actually to have both. For docs, I voiced it. I think I voiced this in the first meeting, but it will be very difficult for us to make massive changes there, especially including like examples, unless it's highly portable, because docs live in Node Core, and that's going to be something that we work with them on, and that's it's an implementation detail that's down the line, and it's going to be hard. I think, and that's, we should use one solution for the two kind of areas we're going for here, which is one is docs, and then the other is kind of that getting started. Okay, here's how you can start with Node and kind of build up that Node.js experience from like, okay, I know JavaScript, what next? To being able to go and actually feel comfortable in that you have a starting place and you can kind of have an idea of where to go explore from there.
Right.
And I think that covers more of the application space rather than the single use, here's how you do this. Space.
I guess the concern is like getting into the ecosystem, like the NPM ecosystem or Yarn, or you start to, there might be some favoritism, there might be some gaps that then we find.
Yeah, we need to answer the question, do we want to be a documentation site for the entire ecosystem and highlight the major tooling and become a documentation site for NPM, for, right. Hey, this is Express, here's the basics of Express? or are we focused on the core of Node? Provide links out to other sites that might do a better job of explaining those in more detail than we do or can. I don't. The power of Node is the ecosystem and is the platform, and I think we would be remiss to ignore that in the documentation. But striking that balance between introducing the ecosystem and documenting an existing tool that we don't maintain is going to be interesting to strike. And I think we'll be heavily informed by, I believe, the issue number on my phone. I'm sorry, issue number 14. Working with Node School to come up with content. I've noticed it was not on the agenda. Probably should be. Like we need content for getting started, and I think that will drastically inform what we need. We're having that conversation right now, kind of tangentially, is what type of content do we want on the site. So we need that.
And I do think that one important thing here is, getting started probably shouldn't be static. It should be more of a living thing, and so having one basic path is, of course, going to be something we need. But also opening that up in a Node School style way to, here's how you can do this one. Or, here's how you can do an Express app. Getting started with this, and not necessarily us deciding what those are, but opening that up a bit and providing a framework for that might be. I mean, it'll be, providing a framework for it would probably be helpful for the project in the long run of having this sustainable thing that we can kind of work on and iterate and reference in the future. But it would also help us kind of get more engagement and buy-in from the community itself, and help grow that community and also take that workload and that burden off of us to a certain extent. Building a framework is for that, like a ground level for that is difficult, but it also removes burden in the long run.
We haven't heard back from Node Source contacts or anyone yet, have we?
So one of the things about Node Source Node School is
sorry.
No worries. It's not really like one person. There's no like governing top level people that we can talk to. It's very community driven. So like Olivia is one of those people. And I know, there are a few people that got mentioned. And I actually know two of them personally, who are kind of high level in that. I didn't realize that they were involved at that level, but I can go out and reach out to them and kind of help try to drive that a little bit more. So it doesn't look like any of those people kind of dropped in, but looking at the names that Olivia mentioned, I can actually go reach out to them.
Tony, could you maybe help organize a kind of a spin-off meeting from this, where we get the Node School people sitting down with us, and let's do a whiteboarding session for what getting started might look like. I think we just need to start iterating on content.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've hashed it out a lot in conversation. I think the work just needs to get done.
Yes.
So.
One thing related to the getting started content, since we are trying to work with Node School and we just talked about striking a certain balance between ecosystem and Node core. Node School they do organize their workshoppers in a way where there are core workshoppers, which talks about like how to use NPM and how to use streams, basic Node stuff. And also they have what they call electives, which are other things that are not exactly part of the core Node experience, but more to do with the ecosystem. So that could be something we follow, something similar.
A good model.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's right in their workshoppers section if people want to take a look. Yeah, so that might be how we might also structure it.
Okay. Cool. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to add to that?
No.
Okay. So with that, I think we can move on to the next agenda item, which is content structure. So I think this might be like a legacy agenda item.
Yeah, I believe so.
There's nothing really new in that. So unless anyone has anything they'd like to add, I think we can move on. I will also remove the label from that. So one thing just to note for everyone here, and I'll also try to make everyone else aware, on Monday, the agenda, like the Monday before the meeting, the agenda items are created and like gathered. So, if don't hesitate to add something to the agenda. There's, no reason, we're all happy to discuss the things, and we can always take things off like we just did. So yeah, no need to hesitate to add things to the agenda if you feel it's deserved or needed. So there were two kind of things that we talked about, and one of them we didn't really talk about, but I feel like we should kind of have some next steps, what we need to take away from this meeting and what we need to kind of do to continue to push forward. Does anyone have anything they'd like to kind of add to that list?
Just to follow up on action items that I had last week, I'm just gonna, from the last meeting, I just was gonna create essentially a summarized document with a lot of the existing, I guess, outcomes from conversations or threads, and put that into a single sort of document that I'll make a PR with. And within that, I just want to ensure that, the proper, I guess, categories were going to be touched on. So things like the wireframes, content graph, analytics, research and competitive analysis that I know Adam had done a whole blog post on, personas, which I don't think we have touched on yet, or I don't think there's a issue for that yet. But then overall goals and maybe if there is in existence, or if we can create some, mood board style guides, or eventually that will get all filled out as we progress along here. So just want to.
Awesome.
If there's anything missing from, I guess the categories there, we can always add it. I'm guessing this is probably just going to be a markdown file or some sort of folder.
Yeah, that seems like that would be probably the best approach. Just creating, either a file or a folder in the directory and PRing that in.
Yep. Yeah, and then I just also put down here in other, just again, the categorization or the scorecard categories that I'm using for the REPL discovery work. So whether or not the REPL supports versions, like what versions does it support? Is it embeddable? Whether or not it does automatic package resolution, or if you actually have to define like a package JSON, minimal branding, is it well maintained? Is there a cost to it? Does it have console? Things like that. Again, I'm going to post this, I think, in the one thread that we have for getting started, and I think other people can add other criteria that we're going to be looking for if they want.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, that sounds great. Okay. So, any of you, do you feel like there are any kind of other next steps that we need to kind of go and address to continue the momentum that we have?
Not that I'm personally aware of, no.
Okay.
I think we, it sounds like all four of us have had a fun last 2 weeks, so there was limited progress done on this specific initiative. So fingers crossed, like I'm excited to have the action items codified and share in the meeting minutes so we can keep working towards them.
Awesome. Manil or Darcy, do you have anything you'd like to kind of see us do to continue momentum? Or anything additional, I guess I should say.
No, nothing additional. Not
Okay.
right now.
I mean, I've been working on an update to the Node School Toronto website, and I've found myself trying to create essentially like a network bar or something that ties in Node, Node documentation and navigation, along with the Node School documentation and navigation, into the website for my specific chapter here in Toronto. And I've sort of found it to be an interesting exercise in creating some sort of unification across those three entities. So you have the local ad hoc user group essentially, but is heavily reliant on the education and the tutorials and lessons that were created by Node School, but then that is in turn heavily reliant on the documentation for Node.
Yeah.
And right now I found that there's been a lot of sort of Googling, searching, and a lot of confusion, I think, for any attendees to our events. And so I just wanted to add, essentially, as we hopefully open up discussions with Node School or to other communities, that we consider, is there an opportunity here for us to, create a tighter relationship in a real way through, whatever that looks like, network tabs, etc. Is there some sort of style guide we can create, a framework for creating websites? Node School in Montreal actually took our forked essentially our website, and we were totally okay with that. And maybe there's an opportunity to create a standard like Node School website template, or work with Node School itself to also update that website, because it's been a few years since
it has.
So I'm just wondering, if we create a really good framework in which we design or redesign the Node website, keep in mind, how this could potentially permeate through the entire JS ecosystem, including, the foundation website, the JS Foundation website, these other orgs that, we collaborate with, and potentially, there's a lot of crossover. So just a comment, I guess.
Yeah, that's awesome. For sure. Cool. And with that, I think we can probably close out the meeting a little bit early, about 30 minutes early. So that's awesome. So thanks everyone for coming. And if you have anything, you'd like to share with the website redesign initiative, or, you'd like to participate, feel free to come over to the website redesign initiative repo in the Node.js GitHub organization. And we will, we're happy to have more people. So awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks.